I just didn't. I didn't. I felt like her character was regressing instead of progressing and learning more and becoming more mature. I felt like she was she definitely wasn't the character that she was in the previous movie in any way. She was, and I say that because she was told she's told by several people, people that she trusts, people that are close to her, that what she's going to do is dangerous and is going to result in a lot of people getting killed. But she doesn't listen. She has all sorts of signs pointing to this is going to end badly for everybody, not just you, but everybody. And she ignores that, and I'm like, that doesn't make her likable. I mean, not taking away from her performance, but even her performance though, it's good, but it's not as good as in First Class. I definitely felt like Jennifer Lawrence by this point was kind of, she was phoning it in a little bit. I felt like she knew she was in other franchises as a bigger star in other movies like The Hunger Games. So she felt like she had less necessity to really make this a stirring performance. So she's okay. I definitely didn't dislike her in this movie. Her character actually does get some cool action sequences, but she's definitely not my favorite character by this point. With that said, we are now at Apocalypse, which was Bryan Singer's fourth X-Men movie to direct. And I actually forgot to mention he directed Days of Future Past, which, if anybody, I feel like if anybody else had directed it, or if Singer had no involvement, it may have been much. Days of Future Past may have turned out much worse, but it didn't, thankfully. But for some reason, he makes three really good X-Men movies. Even if the pacing is sometimes slow in each of his movies, especially in the first two. I mean, they at least feel important, and they at least feel like they have their own individual standing reason to exist. Apocalypse doesn't feel like that. Apocalypse feels X-Men Apocalypse feels like a very episodic movie. It doesn't feel like it is building on previous X-Men movies. It's just another run-of-the-mill bad guy causing run-of-the-mill destruction. He has no backstory. He has no real motivations. He has... it's like a character from a Power Rangers episode, in the sense that every Power Rangers episode has a new bad guy in it, a new monster that causes trouble. That's basically what he is. He's just another guy with no ties to the past, no ties to other characters, no relationships with other characters. He's played by Oscar Isaac, but Oscar Isaac is acting with 10 layers of purple makeup or blue makeup. He doesn't look scary. He doesn't look intimidating. I mean, there are a few scenes where he does look kind of intimidating, but generally the design just doesn't look... I don't know what they were going for, but they should have just let Oscar Isaac, even if it wouldn't be true to the comic book depiction of Apocalypse, it would have been better for Oscar Isaac just to perform without all that makeup. Or if they did give him makeup where you could identify his personality under the makeup. This way just looks like a cartoon character. And so Apocalypse, Oscar Isaac's performance wasn't good. I don't think it's his fault, but it wasn't great. As for the other performances, they're good. Most of the other actors are fine. You don't see any of the older cast. There is a couple older characters that do make cameos in the movie, but that's very limited. Mostly here we're refocused on the new generation of X-Men with the younger actors. And that's fine. They're all good. But I feel like this movie is very run of the mill, very tired, and it's too long. It's probably 20 or 30 minutes too long. Magneto's given yet another tragedy to overcome with his family, which I won't get into if you haven't seen it. But it's like, does he need to have another tragedy to overcome? Does he have to have? Why does it almost becomes comical how many bad things happen to Magneto? Like, isn't him barely surviving the Holocaust enough? Isn't that enough motivation for him to be bitter and angry and violent? Isn't that enough? His mother getting killed during the Holocaust, is that not enough? Apparently, Bryan Singer didn't think so. So he adds another tragic incident to his life, to the point that it's like, okay, this guy's life just sucks. That's just all there is to it. He just has one hammer drop on his head after another, and it wasn't a good creative choice. But that's just some of my thoughts about. Oh, and there's tons of other. There's a handful of other characters that are reintroduced into the series in Apocalypse, but they're very cliche, very one note. I don't blame any of the actors. I think the actors themselves were fine, but they just weren't given anything. They weren't given squat to work with. They were cardboard cutouts. Olivia Munn, who from what I understand, she is a decent actress, but they didn't give her anything to do. She's just a henchwoman for Apocalypse to stand off to the side with a constant sneer on her face. That's it. That's literally all she does. She doesn't have any character development whatsoever. Zero. And that goes for several of the younger characters. But there's so many subplots and so many different little character arcs they try to cram into this movie that I really don't feel like going through all of them. But Apocalypse is okay. I'd say 6 out of 10. I only give it such a particular rating because I really don't. It's not a horrible movie. It's an alright X-Men movie. It's just, it really pales in comparison to Days of Future Past and First Class, and it really weighs down this trilogy. And of course, Fox wasn't finished with the X-Men series, and they went and made Dark Phoenix, which I haven't heard a single solitary good thing about it. Maybe you have, I don't know, but I have not heard one single good thing about this movie. So I haven't even watched it. I'm sorry. I wish I could say otherwise, but I've heard that it really, really sucks, and I have no motive to see it, which is unfair. I'm sure there's lots of movies that get glossed over because critics gave it unfair criticism. So other people said, well, we're just not going to see it. So maybe the critics were wrong about Dark Phoenix. I don't know. But it's one thing for a movie to be divisive. The Last Jedi is a very divisive movie. The Star Wars prequels are very divisive movies. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is a very divisive movie. Audiences are split 50-50 on lots of those on those movies. But for a movie to get the critical approval of, like, I don't know, 15% or 20%, and the audience ratings not being that much better, I mean, that's really bad. So, I might see it at some point. I'm just not in a hurry to see it right now. I'm content with the other X-Men films. Again, First Class, a great movie. Love the performances, love the reboot to the series. X-Men Days of Future Past, a very risky movie. Could have been messy, sloppy, but it wasn't. It was well crafted, well balanced. It balanced the older characters, the older actors with the younger cast, and the effects and the pacing and the action sequences are all amped up. Apocalypse is definitely a letdown from those first two, but it's still passable. It's disappointing but passable. I would recommend seeing all three of them, but if you're not in a hurry to see all three, I would definitely encourage you to watch the first two. If you want to see Apocalypse, go check it out. It's very episodic. You can see it or not see it. It really won't affect how you feel about the rest of the X-Men series. So that's just my thoughts about those X-Men movies. And I'll probably review the older X-Men movies and Logan and the other Wolverine movies and other spin-off movies. Logan, by the way, is a great movie. I'll talk about it in greater detail later. Really good movie. Almost reluctant to call it a superhero movie though because it's so dark and so gritty. But it's good. But anyway, I think that'll be all for this evening. So you guys have a good night, okay?